Hi there, we're looking at Mark chapter 14, verse 12 to 26. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb, Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" So he sent two of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large upper room, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." The disciples left, went into the city, and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. While they were reclining at the table eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." They were saddened, and one by one they said to him, "Surely not I." "It is one of the 12, he replied, "one who dips bread into the bowl with me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." Then he took the cup, gave thanks and offered it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many," he said to them. "I tell you the truth, I will not drink again of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it anew in the kingdom of God." When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. And so we're heading into the end section of Mark, and we've got this story that is traditionally known as the Lord's Supper. And it's hard to kind of read the first aspect of the story, the first part of it, without speculation. Had Jesus already set up this thing? If he hadn't, then it sounds really prophetic and exciting. Go into the town, find this guy, say this stuff to him, and this room's already been prepared. Or it could have been the case that Jesus went along yesterday and paid for it and it was all sorted. So without going into speculation doesn't really help a lot. It gives us maybe more exciting versions of the story, but it's hard to really kind of look into that. But just this idea that Jesus had a plan, and this supper with his friends wasn't an accident. It was something that he planned specially, knowing that his time was running out. And then the other interesting thing from this passage is verse 18. While they were reclining at the table eating, he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." And I think there's something very powerful in the fact that Jesus decides to have a meal with somebody that's going to be responsible for his death. And later on he issues a warning. Woe is it for that person. It would have been better if they hadn't been born. And so you have to wonder, was there a chance for Judas to make that decision? Was he destined to make that decision? Or was Jesus giving him a way out and saying, "Look, I know what's going to happen"? Was it maybe just so that Judas knew that Jesus knew? Again, much kind of speculation to get to the real heart of the story. But one thing that is clear is that Jesus knows he's about to be betrayed, and he still decides to eat with somebody that's going to be his biggest enemy. And so the question, the challenge for us is, can you eat a meal with your enemy? Would you prepare a meal for someone that doesn't like you? Would you prepare a meal for someone that has done you wrong? And I think even just looking at the way that Jesus chooses these 12 disciples, we don't know if he knew the whole time that Judas was going to betray him, but we just see again and again how they mess it up, how they're always vying for power, how Peter gets it completely wrong so many times. And I can just imagine myself in that situation, just being so totally frustrated and being like, "Cool, God, I'm over these disciples. Let me pick another batch of 12. This group is not working out so well." Even their parents get brought into arguments trying to decide who's going to be the most powerful one, who's going to sit on my right and left. This is not a great leadership team. And yet, for some reason, Jesus sticks with them. He knows he's only going to be left with 11, but he entrusts them with becoming the church. You're going to be my group of people, my ambassadors, who are going to take the message of the kingdom of God, the message of salvation and redemption, and you're going to spread it around the land. You are going to be the ones responsible for making this happen. And so I think that is such a powerful message. And maybe the question, who do you choose to sit around the meal table with? Maybe it makes sense most of the time that we eat with our friends and our family and neighbors, but do you make occasions where you create a food space for your enemies? Because maybe that's the first step in terms of them not being your enemy anymore. Maybe inviting them to a meal, preparing food for them is a way to have a conversation, to create a space for forgiveness, to create restoration. Maybe that's something important in kind of the context of race relations, reconciliation. In South Africa, where I'm from and I'm heading back to, are we creating space around the table for people that are different to us so that we can start conversation, so that we can head towards a different future? I think those are some important things. And then just lastly, touching on the fact of the Lord's Supper. I know my wife gets really big on this one, that this meal, this celebration, Jesus saying, doing this in remembrance of me. And in one sense, we've reduced it to kind of a little cracker or a little piece of bread and dipping it in the juice or having like a little bit of grape juice. And in one sense, we can lose so much of that. And not saying that that is wrong, because the symbols in church help us be reminded of this time, be reminded of what Jesus says. So the symbolism is great. But I'd also like to challenge us to do it around a meal where Jesus did it. Take and create a space for celebrating communion with some friends. Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. And he was in the middle of a meal. Remember as you eat together. Remember as you drink together that my body was broken, that my blood was poured out. So I want to encourage you to create a time in the next month, in the next week, to grab some friends around the table and say, hey, let's celebrate communion as a meal together. I want to challenge you to invite an enemy, somebody who you've got broken relationship with. Invite them to a meal, or maybe it's a drink, or something like that, just to get started. But let's take this passage and use it to see the kingdom of God experienced by us and those around us.